From early in the morning, the city had been cold and sunny. But as evening approached, a terrible blizzard started. A solid white cloud seemed to hang over the land, covering everything around. It felt like time had stopped, with nothing visible around. People hurried to get back home as quickly as possible, with only a lone traveler trudging almost blindly. Darren had spent the whole day clearing snow at the market, trying to earn some money, and now he was trying to make his way to the grocery store where there was a sale on, allowing for cheaper purchases. He was homeless and accustomed to dealing with any difficulties, but even he hadn't expected such a storm. He couldn't see anything in front of him and simply tried to move forward. He knew that if he stopped, he might freeze to death. Suddenly, faint moans were heard from somewhere in the snowdrift, someone desperately trying to call for help. Darren was surprised but couldn't pass by. Approaching the snowdrift, he saw a woman with a huge belly lying in the snow, groaning. Bending over her, he asked, "My goodness, what's wrong with you? Are you okay? Get up quickly." The stranger was almost unconscious, murmuring something in delirium and clutching her stomach tightly. Darren immediately realized she was pregnant and apparently in distress. There was no time to waste. He had to help her right away. He forgot about the distant grocery store and picked up the woman, struggling to carry her towards the nearest houses. Darren knocked on each door, hoping someone would answer. There was one last mansion. It was his last hope. Suddenly, he heard a voice. "Who's there?" Darren shouted. "Please, let us in. I have a pregnant woman with me. She's in bad shape." Suddenly, the window opened, and keys fell onto the porch. "Open up and come in." Darren was bewildered. What kind of foolish joke was this? Couldn't they just open the door? But there was no time to ponder this. He grabbed the keys, opened the door, and carried the woman inside. It was dark in the hallway. He tried to make out where the homeowner was. Why wasn't he coming out? It was getting eerie. Suddenly, an elderly man, looking dignified, emerged from the bedroom in a wheelchair. He turned on the light and commanded, "Hello. My name is Harris. Undress the woman and lay her on the couch. We'll figure out what's wrong with her. I just tried to call an ambulance, but unfortunately, there's a strong blizzard outside, and something's happened to the communication. I'm a surgeon. We'll handle this ourselves. Was she carrying any documents? What's the gestational age? And how is the baby? I need to examine her." The woman warmed up and regained consciousness. "Where am I? Who are you? Please, help. I think I'm in labor." The homeowner put on gloves, approached the pregnant woman, and started to calm her down. "Don't be afraid. What's your name?" "I'm Harris, a surgeon. Don't panic. Let me examine you. How far along are you?" The woman screamed again in pain and replied, "I'm Kira, and I'm already 40 weeks pregnant. I'm so scared. What if something happens to me?" Harris raised his hands. "You're in labor, and the most important thing is that the baby is in the correct position. We need to hurry. Darren, I won't be able to handle the baby alone. You'll have to help. Wash your hands and fill the bathtub with warm water. Get clean sheets from the closet and do as I say. Everything will be fine." Darren was terribly afraid of doing something wrong and thought, what if something happens to the woman or her baby? I'll end up in prison. Kira was getting worse. She was no longer in control, only hearing a clear voice from afar. "Take a deep breath. Hold it. Good. Now exhale. Rest. Let's get ready again." Harris instructed Darren. With one hand, support the baby's head by the occiput, and gently turn. "Kira, one last time. Inhale. Great. Well done. Darren, now lay the baby down. Wipe him off, and let's cut the umbilical cord. Don't be afraid. It's not difficult." So, with combined efforts, Kira safely gave birth to a healthy boy. He cried loudly, while Kira held him close to her chest and cried, "Thank you. If it weren't for your help, I would have surely died. I don't know how to thank you. Honestly, I have nowhere to go. I was renting a room, but I couldn't pay for the last month, and the landlord kicked me out onto the street. How am I supposed to live now with my baby? Darren sighed and replied, I've been homeless for a long time, and I can tell you, you won't survive on the street, especially with a little one. I'd gladly take you in, but I'm currently living in an abandoned building. Harris pondered and said, don't think about the worst right now. Rest. You can stay with me for a couple of days, and in that time, I'll figure something out. After all, there are crisis centers where you can stay for a while. And both you and your baby need to see a doctor. Home births are very dangerous. There could be complications. What will you name your son? Kira thought for a moment and replied, I'll name him after my grandfather, Howell. He loved me so much. Darren said, well then, I'll be on my way. I wouldn't want to be a burden. I'm quite used to life on the street. Harris waved his hands. No, that's out of the question. Where will you go in such a blizzard? Stay here. I have a huge house with plenty of space. And anyway, I don't know why you ended up on the street, but my advice to you, you'd make an excellent orderly. You followed my instructions so precisely. In a private clinic, the pay is good, and it's stable work. Think about it. You helped a stranger so selflessly. Not everyone is capable of that. So, I believe you'll manage just fine in the hospital. Darren thanked the homeowner and went to sleep on the couch in the hallway. Kira was completely exhausted and, holding her son, fell asleep too. Early in the morning, Harris's wife and stepson returned home, and they clearly didn't expect to see strangers in their house. A scandal erupted. Victoria shouted, wake up. Who are you people? What are you doing here? Leave immediately. Harris, what's going on here? Why do we have dirty vagrants in our house? Kira clutched her son fearfully, who even started to cry. Harris's stepson, Max, dragged Darren towards the exit. Harris entered the living room and said loudly, Max, what do you think you're doing? Leave this man alone immediately. Victoria, stop yelling. You've already scared the child. These are my guests, and this is my house. They'll stay as long as necessary. I have a question for you. Where were you all night? Victoria seemed to ignore her husband. Indignant. What guests? Just look at them. We could catch something from them. My son and I were at an exhibition of a famous artist. Do you even know that he came to our town? Although, how would you know? You never leave the house. Darren quickly put on his jacket and said, I'll just leave. If anything, I live in an abandoned building nearby. You can always find me there. Thank you for everything. Harris was angry and resolutely said, have you forgotten, my dear, when you used to sell vegetables at the market? Or have you forgotten how I pulled you out of poverty? And you, Max, it seems you don't appreciate anything. Or do you need something? You're 20 already. It's time for you to get a job. So, everyone calm down right now and accept my guests as they are. Kira will stay with us for now, I've decided. She's in a difficult situation. I don't want to hear any more insults or reproaches. Victoria was very upset, but obeyed her husband and went to her room. Kira was greatly frightened. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. It's because of me that you now have problems in your family. I better leave. I'm just causing trouble here. Harris took her hand, then looked fondly at Howell. The baby wrinkled his nose amusingly. Harris made a call, then said to Kira, a friend of mine, an obstetrician, has agreed to take you to his clinic. A car will come for you shortly. They'll examine you and register the birth, and then, if all goes well, you'll come back here. I'm very concerned about your health. Don't worry, you're not a burden here. I just want to help you. Kira cried and didn't know how to thank Harris. Harris, thank you. You care so much about me. I haven't met people like you in a long time. I promise I'll leave as soon as I find some solution to my problem." The woman was taken to the clinic, where she underwent an examination. They were surprised at how professionally the birth was handled, and within a day, Kira and Howell were discharged home. Kira was settled into a small, cozy bedroom. It was very clean and comfortable. She tried to avoid crossing paths with Victoria and Max because she could feel their animosity towards her. A couple of times, she overheard their conversation in the kitchen. Victoria exclaimed, "Max, I refuse to tolerate this vagrant in our house. I think Harris has lost his mind. And her child constantly crying at night. Why should I put up with this at all?" Only when they were out of the house did Kira talk extensively with Harris, sharing their life stories. The surgeon talked about himself. "I've dedicated my entire life to my work, starting with regular surgery at the city hospital. I still remember my first operation. I was so nervous as I prepared, but as soon as I held the scalpel in my hand, I remembered the entire plan of action, and the nervousness faded away. Later, I became the head of a private clinic. I've been working there for many years. 5 years ago, I married Victoria. We met at the birthday party of my school friend. She was much younger than me, so beautiful, and I fell in love. Victoria didn't come from a wealthy family. When we first met, she was working at the market. I never got along with her son right from the start because he had a very difficult character. I tried my best to ensure my family lacked nothing. We traveled to different countries for vacations regularly, and I covered Max's education in the most prestigious school in our city. I was sure Victoria was grateful to me for everything, but I was deeply mistaken. It took me too long to realize it. 6 months ago, we went to a ski resort. I'm quite adept at snowboarding, but that time something went wrong. I fell and tumbled down the slope. As a result, I got a spinal injury and can hardly work now. I fell into a deep depression and stopped leaving the house. Though I still managed the clinic online, I thought Victoria would support me, be there for me, given all the good I've done for her and Max. But it turned out differently. She became very angry and constantly disappears somewhere. I even suspect she's cheating on me. We've become complete strangers to each other. I'm even considering divorce." Kira sighed and sincerely felt sorry for the surgeon. He was such a good person, and being around him, for some reason, made her feel so calm. It was strange. She had never experienced such feelings before. The woman also honestly shared her own story. "I never knew my dad. I lived with my mom and stepdad all my life. She loved me very much, and I only remember her with kindness. My mom worked at the local hospital and adored her profession. When I turned 10, my mom passed away. That day, my childhood and normal life ended forever. After her funeral, I stayed with my stepdad. While mom was alive, Shad hardly ever drank alcohol, but after her death, he seemed to lose it and was constantly drunk. He got angry with me, always shouting that he wasn't obligated to feed me and blamed me for all his failures. It was not life, but real hell. When I turned 16, I couldn't take it anymore and ran away from home. I tried to survive however I could. Worked as a cleaner in a bakery. The money I managed to earn barely covered rent for a small room and food. Then I met Kellen. He delivered groceries to the bakery. Kellen was 10 years older than me. Anyway, we started a relationship. I naively thought he was serious about me and that we would definitely get married in the future. My work friends warned me that he just liked flirting with girls, so he was still unmarried. Still, I continued to believe in Kellen, thinking my friends were just jealous. As soon as I got pregnant, he immediately dumped me and stopped answering my calls. I felt terrible. I couldn't believe someone could betray like that. I even thought about having an abortion. Soon after, I lost my job because my pregnancy made me too slow. I couldn't pay my rent, and the landlord kicked me out. And then you know the rest. I don't know how to go on. You mentioned there's a special crisis center. Maybe I should go there. The surgeon unexpectedly asked, "Wait, what was your mom's name? And how old are you?" Kira replied in surprise, "My mom's name was Helen, and I'm 25 now." Harris clutched his heart, visibly distressed. Kira, alarmed, brought him some water, exclaiming, "Oh my, are you okay? Is it because of me? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." Harris drank some water, calming down a bit, then exclaimed, "I knew your mom. We had a romance in our youth. She started working at my hospital, and that's how we met. Helen was wonderful, kind, beautiful, and most importantly, she loved me madly. I thought I loved her too. But my mother was against our relationship, so I, the scoundrel, left her. I didn't even know she was pregnant. She was deeply hurt and resigned to never see me again, so she quit her job. It can't be just a coincidence. I need to verify everything. Are you okay with that? What if you're my daughter? I would be happy because I don't have any biological children." Kira was in shock and eagerly awaited the results of the test. She couldn't believe she might have found her biological father. A week later, the miracle happened. Harris called her over and handed her the test results, confirming they were indeed close relatives. Kira rushed to hug the man, saying, "Dad, Daddy, it's so nice to say that word. I'm not angry with you at all. On the contrary, I'm happy we've met." Harris couldn't contain his emotions. Tears streamed down his cheeks. He held Kira's hands and spoke, looking into her eyes, "Daughter, I won't let you go now. I'm sorry I wasn't there, but I truly didn't know anything about you. I'll announce this news to Victoria and Max tomorrow. Let them try to insult you again. My home is your home too. Tomorrow, you'll go to the store with Victoria and buy everything Howell needs. Don't skimp. My grandson deserves the best. I'll give you as much money as you need." Kira replied, "Okay, Dad, thank you for everything. Just recently, I was on the brink of despair, and today I'm the happiest daughter. Also, Dad, would you mind if I find Darren? After all, he's the one who saved my life. I didn't even get a chance to thank him." Harris replied, "Of course, I don't mind. You're right. He also needs help." Encouraged, Kira decided to ask the main question, "Dad, maybe you should have surgery. Or is it all really bad? I want so much for you to get back on your feet. Shouldn't you get checked again?" Harris sighed. "Honestly, after the injury, I became completely indifferent to my future. I fell into depression, and I didn't really want to live. But you're right. Now everything has changed. I need to help you raise Howell. I'll call my acquaintance, a professor, and get examined. What if I really still have a chance at a normal life?" Kira exclaimed, "That's right. Dad, I'll definitely take care of you. After my mom's death, I didn't want to live either. But now I'll do everything to make sure you're healthy." The next day, Harris told Victoria and Max that Kira was his biological daughter, and Howell was his grandson, and that they were now full-fledged members of their family. Max was the first to speak up. "What a surprise. Am I supposed to call this tramp my sister now?" "Never." Victoria was also outraged. "Darling, are you okay? Maybe you need to see a psychiatrist." "What daughter? Where from? She's just deceiving you. I'll never accept her or that annoying Howell into our family. We are your family, and she's nobody." Kira felt so hurt that she burst into tears and ran to her room. Unable to tolerate such rudeness, Harris slammed his fist on the table. "I'm sick of you. I'm not going to justify myself to you, and I won't change my decision. If something doesn't suit you, I'm not holding anyone back. We're getting divorced. Victoria, pack your things and leave. After my injury, we stopped being a family anyway. You don't care about me at all. You just want my money." Victoria got angry. "Then we're leaving. And just so you know, I've had another man for a long time. He's young, healthy, and wealthy. And you, poor invalid, can stay with your penniless daughter." Finally, Victoria and Max left the mansion, and Harris felt a sense of relief. He had spent so many years on a woman who had remained a stranger to him, only to find a replacement in the end. The next day, Kira bought everything necessary for Howell. Then she decided to visit the church and prayed fervently for her father's health. She was incredibly grateful to fate for giving her a biological family member. But there was still one important task ahead: finding Darren. Kira was shocked when she entered the abandoned house where Darren used to live. The building was in terrible condition. Huge cracks in the foundation, broken windows, a foul smell of decay. Strangely, there were no signs of life inside the house. Kira started to worry. Did Darren no longer live here? Would they never see each other again? Where could she find him now? Kira called out for Darren and yelled his name. A neighbor came out in response. "Hello, sorry to bother you, but a man named Darren used to live here. Do you know where I can find him? I really need to see him." Kira asked anxiously. The man replied, "Of course, I know him. He got a job as an orderly at the local hospital and rented himself an apartment. He was so proud when he took his things from here. Darren is a very good man. He always helped me." Kira thanked the man and headed to the hospital. Once there, she approached the first nurse she saw and inquired about Darren. The nurse smiled and replied, "Yes, I know Darren. He works with great enthusiasm and cares deeply for each of his patients. Wait a moment, I'll find him for you." After a few minutes, the nurse indeed brought Darren. Kira didn't even recognize the former vagrant. He was clean-shaven, well-groomed, and dressed in a medical uniform. And most importantly, he genuinely looked happy now. Darren was overjoyed and hugged Kira like an old friend. He told Kira, "I'm so grateful to Harris for suggesting I apply for the orderly job. I never expected it, but they actually hired me. I didn't realize how much I would enjoy this work. I genuinely like helping patients and hearing their words of gratitude. I'm no longer an outcast. I feel useful and beneficial. It turns out, doing good deeds is so rewarding. How are you? How's Howell? Are you still living with Harris?" Kira quickly filled Darren in on the changes in her life. "It's unbelievable, but it turns out Harris is my father. So now I'm also the happiest. Darren, I came here to offer you to continue our connection. Come to visit us more often. Let's hang out with Howell and be friends. I didn't tell you the most important thing back then. Thank you so much for saving both mine and Howell's lives. My dad and I will be waiting for you to visit. Will you come?" Darren smiled broadly. Truth be told, he really liked Kira, but he was very afraid to admit it to her. "I'll come tomorrow. I don't have any other friends, so I'll be more than happy to spend time with you," he replied. Harris indeed divorced Victoria, although the process was very difficult for him. The selfish woman demanded to split everything acquired during their marriage. It came down to toothbrushes, household appliances, and some clothes. Harris's lawyer quickly resolved everything and provided the court with a statement that she hadn't worked a day anywhere and had been supported by Harris. The man wasn't vengeful or greedy. He had already left Victoria with the apartment and car, but Victoria kept demanding more and more, which truly angered Harris. He decided he wouldn't leave anything to his ex-wife at all. Let her new lover take care of her now. Darren now often visited Kira and Harris. They drank tea, played with Howell, and had long conversations. One day Harris asked, "I look at you, Darren. You're smart. Well read. How did you end up homeless?" Darren sighed heavily and began to explain, "My childhood wasn't unhappy at all. I grew up in a complete family and never lacked anything. I did well in school and even participated in various competitions, but none of it interested me. It seemed like my parents exerted too much influence over my life. What a fool I was back then, not appreciating my luck. I thought it would be terribly boring to live my whole life like that, following the rules. I craved adrenaline, new emotions. I could intentionally not come home to stay overnight without informing my family. Basically, I drove my parents to hysterics. And I also loved driving while intoxicated. A couple of times, I even crashed my father's car. My mother cried all the time, begged me to come to my senses. But that wasn't all. I started gambling. At first, I was afraid and didn't make big bets, but it all went too far. Once I lost a huge sum of money and went to my father to beg for money. I still remember his words. "Your mother and I have invested our souls in you, and you embarrass us like this. Aren't you ashamed in front of your own mother? Do you want independence? Fine. Leave. I'm blocking all your bank cards, and you'll pay your own debts now. If you come to your senses and become a decent person, then come back. But if not, don't bother us anymore." I, too, got angry, slammed the door demonstratively, and left. To evade creditors, I quickly drove 1,000 kilometers to another city and decided to build my new life there, to prove to my father that I was capable of something too. I thought I would get a job in a cool company, but no. I had to settle for a regular manager position. I didn't have any money for rent or to maintain the lifestyle I was accustomed to. I had to make do with a small room. I couldn't wait or endure. I wanted the beautiful life I had before, all at once. So, I started gambling again, and then I ended up in prison because of it. Prison changed me a lot, of course. When my sentence ended, I realized that my normal life was over. With a criminal record, nobody would hire me, and I became homeless. I wrote letters to my father, apologized, but he only replied once, saying that my mother had died, and it was my fault. So he didn't want to know about me anymore. I had long given up hope, but after I saved Kira and held little Howell in my arms, something changed. Following your advice, I got a job as a janitor, and now I genuinely feel happy helping people. So, I owe you my gratitude because it was after meeting you that my life started getting back on track. It turns out, it's never too late to realize and change. But the guilt towards my parents still haunts me. Harris focused on his health, underwent medical examinations again, and it turned out that he had a chance to work again. The surgeon honestly said that he would never be able to run, but walking was possible. Preparation for the operation began. Kira was always by his side, supporting her father, helping him learn to work, feeding him with a spoon, and worrying deeply. Darren often helped Kira with Howell. The boy was growing up and started recognizing Darren, smiling at him, and reaching out to him. Kira and Darren grew close, and there was a mutual fondness between them. One day, Darren gathered the courage and asked the woman, "Kira, tell me, who is Howell's father? Why doesn't he visit him at all? You've never told me about this. Did you love him?" The woman became sad and replied sharply, "Howell doesn't have a father. He abandoned me as soon as he found out I was pregnant. What does it matter if I loved him or not? I won't trust anyone anymore. All men are the same." Darren was very upset and quietly asked, "And you won't believe me either?" "Never. I had hoped. I've grown very fond of you and Howell. I've never loved anyone else like this in my life. You're not like everyone else. More than anything in the world, I would love to be with you and have a wife like you. I understand your distrust after being betrayed, but I want you to know about my feelings. I can't hide them anymore, and I'll still be there, even if you reject me." Kira wasn't ready to hear such a confession. "You really love me? Then why didn't you say anything before? I found you myself. Would I have done that if you were indifferent to me? I really like you too, Darren. I'll be glad if you're always around, but I'm very afraid of making a mistake again. Understand me and don't rush. Right now, my son is the meaning of life for me. Let him grow up a bit, and then we'll decide something." Darren smiled. Now he knew for sure that Kira loved him too. He felt it. He just needed to wait a little. He would definitely prove his love to her. Harris also saw how much his daughter and Darren liked each other, how genuine feelings were blossoming between them. The man decided to help them a little. One day, he offered Darren, "Why don't you move in with us? Why waste money on renting an apartment? I have a huge house. Choose any room and live. We've been friends for a long time. I'd only be happy if you lived with us." The man was almost jumping with joy. Now he would be even closer to Kira. So, he agreed immediately, without hesitation. "Thank you for the invitation. I'd be happy to live with you too. Then I'll move tomorrow." Kira was embarrassed but also very happy in her heart that her father made such a decision. Lately, she didn't recognize herself. She always wanted to look good for Darren. She was constantly smiling. Harris returned to his beloved work. He couldn't operate for hours yet, but consulting and managing the clinic were fine. How he missed his favorite job. He saw patients late into the night, took on even the most seemingly hopeless cases. Now he knew for sure that one should never despair. There's always a chance for the better. At home, his loving daughter, his beloved grandson, and a hot, delicious dinner always awaited him. It seemed like all the problems were now forever in the past. That evening was like any other. Everyone had dinner together, chatted. The man played a bit with his grandson, and then went to bed. Kira also put Howell to sleep and found herself dozing off without noticing. Only Darren couldn't sleep. He decided to read a bit, as Harris had a huge library. The man was sitting in his armchair, engrossed in a detective novel, when suddenly, a shadow appeared outside the window. It was clearly a person's silhouette. The man, startled, rubbed his eyes, looked out the window again, but there was no one there. It seemed like his imagination, so he resumed reading. However, an inner unease lingered. He couldn't focus on reading anymore. Put the book aside, put on his jacket, and tried to go outside to make sure everything was okay. But no matter how hard he pulled the door, it wouldn't open. There was a smell of smoke from outside. An acrid black smoke started seeping in from below the door. Darren panicked and started shouting, "Fire! We are burning! Why won't this damn door open?" A couple of minutes passed, and the flames had already engulfed half of the kitchen. There was no time to waste. Without hesitation, the man started waking everyone up. He opened the window, jumped out himself first, brought a ladder, and started helping the others down one by one. Kira was panicking and crying. Harris was running around the house until the last minute, gathering important documents and valuables. Everything was already on fire, and the homeowner didn't even think about leaving. Kira screamed, "Darren, where's my dad? Save him, please." Risking his life, Darren ran back inside. He felt his way through, choking on the acrid smoke, and pulled out the nearly lifeless Harris. They barely made it out. The entire house was completely engulfed in flames and burned to the ground. The fire brigade, police, and ambulance arrived. Everyone was taken to the hospital. Kira and the baby were unharmed. Harris had minor burns on his hands, but Darren was in bad shape. When he came to, the first thing he did was tell Harris the house didn't burn down for no reason. That evening, I couldn't sleep for a long time, and I definitely saw a shadow of a person in a hood outside the window. And when the front door turned out to be locked from the outside, I knew it was arson. Harris pondered for a moment, then exclaimed, "I know how to check this. There are several cameras in the yard that no one knows about. I installed them very recently. We need to check the recordings from these cameras immediately. If there was a criminal in the yard, we'll definitely see them. Thank you, Darren. You are now a true guardian angel for our family. More than a friend, the closest person. Don't worry about the house. I have savings. We'll buy a new one. I'll definitely find and punish those scoundrels." Harris reviewed the camera footage with the investigator. It turned out that Max set the house on fire. It was clearly visible how Max methodically poured liquid from a canister all over the house. As he ran away, he set a burning rag against the house and jumped over the fence. The surgeon was appalled. He almost shouted, "What a scoundrel! I beg you, I demand that you find this villain and make him answer for everything according to the law. Otherwise, I swear I'll find him myself, and he'll regret it." After divorcing Harris, Victoria lived with her lover. The man didn't want to support Max and told him to live separately. Max was furious because he was used to getting whatever he wanted. Instead of growing up and finally starting to live independently, the guy devised a plan for revenge. He decided that Kira and Harris must die. After committing the crime, Max came home drunk and immediately fell asleep. When he woke up and remembered what he had done, he thought, "I need to run immediately. What if someone saw me? There are probably 3 bodies there now. I'll definitely be sent to prison. I need to urgently call my mother, ask her for money, and get out of here." He frantically dialed Victoria's number. The woman happened to be at a massage session at the salon. The strong hands of the young, handsome masseur were so pleasantly relaxing that she closed her eyes and enjoyed it. The ringing of the phone even startled her. "Mom, hi. Give me some money. I really need it, or I'll be in big trouble," Max said. Victoria frowned and replied, "Max, what kind of jokes are these? How much do you need? And what happened?" Almost in a whisper, the guy replied, "I set Harris's house on fire. They were all there. Let them die. Now they'll know how to kick good people out onto the streets." Victoria felt sick. She was gasping, "You idiot. What have you done? You'll be sent to prison. Why did you do this?" Max got angry and justified himself. "I was also avenging you. I hate Harris and Kira. If she hadn't shown up, we would still be living like before, in abundance and luxury. I need several $1,000s. Victoria's hands shook. She whispered, "I'll find the money, and you get ready. We'll meet at the airport." The woman rushed to her lover's house. She knew the code to his safe. Victoria understood that if her lover discovered the theft, she would be in trouble. But she was willing to do anything just to save her only son. She was accustomed to fulfilling all his whims, thus raising a soulless monster. Max put on a hooded jacket and nervously paced around the airport, waiting for his flight. Suddenly, police officers approached him. They handcuffed him and dragged him somewhere. "Max, you're accused of arson and attempted murder of your stepfather and his family," they said. Max tried to justify himself. "I don't understand what you're talking about. You have no right to detain me." And then he saw Harris approaching, alive and unharmed. "Max, just answer one question. Why? Have I done something wrong to you? You grew up in luxury. What more did you need? Why are you seeking revenge against me?" Harris asked. The guy got angry. "Too bad. I wanted you to burn. And your little pauper too. You won't prove anything." Harris smirked. "You're wrong about that. Surveillance cameras are installed in the yard, so you'll definitely go to jail now." Hearing this, Max turned pale and realized that it was over. Suddenly, Victoria appeared out of nowhere. She was crying and begging, "Harris, please, don't ruin Max's life. Do you want money? Just withdraw the statement, please." Harris was shocked by such audacity and shook his head. "Victoria, come to your senses. Your son almost killed 3 adults and a baby. Do you think this is a joke? Your blind love is what led to this. No, let him think about everything in prison. He'll have plenty of time there." The woman cursed Harris and hugged Max, realizing that she was seeing him for the last time. She never understood that her son deserved all this. After the trial, Max was sentenced to 7 years in prison. He became even more embittered, gloomy, and hated the whole world. Victoria's life turned into torment too. She never returned the money to her lover, hired a lawyer, tried to bail her son out, but it didn't work out. Her lover eventually discovered the theft and kicked Victoria out of his house in a scandal. The woman had to return to her hometown. She had always hated it since childhood. Victoria started drinking alcohol more and more frequently and soon became a real alcoholic. Harris didn't give up and bought a new house. After Darren selflessly saved Kira and her baby, she accepted his proposal to marry him. Now she knew for sure that she couldn't find a better husband. They all lived together, just like before, with Harris. Kira was almost completely happy, but the pain that Darren spoke of regarding his father still troubled her. It was evident that he deeply regretted it, and of course, he wanted to reconcile with him. So she decided to help him, to do something good for her husband too. She didn't tell anyone, just asked her father and husband to look after Howell, and she set off on her journey. She easily found the right street and apartment. An elderly man opened the door, looking surprised at the woman, and said, "Good afternoon. Who are you?" Kira gathered her courage and started a difficult conversation, carefully choosing her words. "Hello, Tom. My name is Kira. I'm Darren's wife, your son. I really need to talk to you. Please." The old man immediately furrowed his gray eyebrows and dryly replied, "I have no son. Forget the way here. And my advice to you, you shouldn't have tied your life to that man." Kira didn't give up and continued, "Why are you like this? I know Darren is guilty before you. He deeply regrets it and really wants to reconcile with you. He's a completely different person now. He saved my life twice. Let me tell you, I've come such a long way. Was it all in vain?" After these words, the old man silently stepped away from the door, allowing her to enter. Kira breathed a sigh of relief. They talked for a long time. The woman told Darren's father everything, and in the end, she added, "Understand, you can't bring back the past. It's gone. I only recently found my father. He once left my mother too. So what? Everyone can make mistakes. The main thing is that he's realized everything now. We're together, and we love each other. Tom, don't push Darren away. You're family after all. Let him at least apologize to you. I can see that he's not indifferent to you." The old man sighed heavily and replied, "Let him come. I'll be waiting for my son." Kira was happy. When she got home, she told Darren everything. The man hugged Kira and whispered to her, "Thank you, my dear. I'll take a leave tomorrow and go. I really want to see my dad. You can't even imagine what you've done for me. I love you." Darren reconciled with his father. He begged for forgiveness for a long time, and the old man eventually forgave him. Harris found out about everything and insisted that Darren move his father closer to them. They sold his apartment and bought him a cozy house. Tom started visiting Darren more often. Now his life finally became meaningful again. He was happy that Darren had become a good husband, son, and father. He thanked Kira for her wisdom, and Darren felt very light-hearted now. Today was Harris's anniversary, and the whole family gathered together. The man had dreamed of celebrating his birthday exactly like this, emotionally, homely, with family. Kira set the table. Darren fired up the barbecue. Tom played with Howell, and the host poured wine into glasses. Finally, Harris said the most important words. "I want to say that with the arrival of an unexpected guest, my life has changed dramatically. Now I'm truly happy. For many years, I lived in lies, not even realizing that I was giving my car to those who didn't love me and didn't appreciate me, but only used me. New people have appeared in my life, but they have become so close and dear. Thanks to Darren, I have found a daughter and a grandson. Now we are all one big and friendly family, and I regret nothing. My dear ones, be healthy, and most importantly, be close to me. For me, this is the best gift."
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look, "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day." Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. "So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. "Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them." It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, what's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. "All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason." "What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do." "I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you." "Please." Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, "Yes. That's Nick for you." Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, "I'm very sorry." Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, "Get his boss here immediately." It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. "What is that idiot doing?" "All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next." Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. "If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you." I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. "Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize." Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. "What kind of training are you giving your subordinates?" Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed, I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry." Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.